Amit Shah, the Home Minister, says the situation in Kashmir is now over. He's rattled out statistics in Parliament on why he believes that this is the case, but there are still no signs of political leaders who remain in jail emerging. Mainstream Kashmiri politicians, the handful of whom are not in custody, ask, what sort of normal is this?
सामान्य ही है स्थिति वहां पे 5 अगस्त के बाद एक भी व्यक्ति की पुलिस फायरिंग से मौत नहीं हुई। 10वीं और 12वीं कक्षा के 99.7% विद्यार्थियों ने एग्जाम दिया। जहां तक इंटरनेट सेवाओं को लागू करने का सवाल है, उचित समय पर वहां के प्रशासन की अनुशंसा के आधार पर ही निर्णय किया जा सकता है। कहीं पर भी 144 की धारा अप्लाई नहीं।
Everything is normal in Kashmir, said Home Minister Amit Shah in the Rajya Sabha, responding to a flurry of opposition questions led by former J&K Chief Minister Ghulam Nabi Azad.
स्कूल और कॉलेज की अटेंडेंस अभी भी 0 से 5% और स्कूल सबसे ज्यादा और कॉलेज सबसे ज्यादा और एजुकेशन एज सच सबसे ज्यादा प्रभावित हुई है। जो स्वास्थ्य से संबंधित है, हेल्थ से संबंधित है, इसको सबसे बड़ा नुकसान हो।
But mainstream political leaders, including 3 former chief ministers, are still in detention, more than 3.5 months after the centre revoked J&K's autonomy. Moments later, the junior Home Minister caused a huge uproar when he justified MP Farooq Abdullah's detention by comparing the government's actions to the emergency. The House was adjourned as a result.
Emergency में 33 लोगों को अरेस्ट किया है, 33 लोगों को अरेस्ट किया आप लोग एमपीज को सिर्फ एक व्यक्ति का किरण एक व्यक्ति का कुर्सी बचाने के लिए आप लोग 36 लोगों को अरेस्ट किया है। हम देश के हित के लिए नो आर्गुमेंट
The centre also put out official figures on the number of detentions, telling Parliament 5,161 preventive arrests were made since the 4th of August, including stone pelters, separatists, overground workers and political workers. Currently, 609 people are in detention, which ranges from the 3 ex-chief ministers to 218 who are stone pelters. While the centre claims normalcy in Kashmir, the detentions of mainstream political leaders is becoming harder to justify. However, BJP General Secretary Ram Madhav has said political engagement needs to start soon and that former Chief Ministers Omar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti will have a role to play. An NDTV Bureau report.
Well, joining us now, Hasnain Masoodi, Lok Sabha MP of the National Conference, Yogendra Yadav, Deshrata Nigam with me, my former colleague Mayami Chintani, and Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, the former Corps Commander 15 Corps, with us. Let me come across to you first, Maya. There are a number of statistics, some of which Amit Shah has spoken about, where he says there's normalcy, train service, inter-district connectivity, travel restrictions lifted, postpaid mobile services, prepaid mobile services, everything except internet essentially, lots of cars on the road. He says that this is normal, people are getting back to their normal life. Is that correct?
Well, normal is a relative term, I think, Vishnu. Yes, people are tired of staying at home, being indoors, having their children stay at home, not going to school. There is an attempt to get back to the business of living a normal life, whether it's going to work, going to school. But I think the bigger question that nobody in the central government seems to be wanting to address face on is how is it normal to have a vast number of MLAs, political leaders still in preventive detention. If things are normal, then they should be allowed to go home. Why are they not being allowed? So I think, like I said, normalcy is a relative term, and that's one. And the second is, as far as normal is concerned, and I said this yesterday at an event as well, I said we now in India and globally have conversations about digital rights and access to the internet being essentially fundamental rights, human rights. I mean, there are conversations going on at multilateral levels about the right to communications via the internet. And India is at the forefront of that dialogue. So if that's the case, then
how can you deny
how can you deny this right? Yeah.
Yogendra Yadav, you went to Kashmir, you came back, and I think the point that you were mentioning in your article was that, we talk about 370, we talk about 35A, the old status of Kashmir, this, that and the other, but now at this stage we're well beyond that. and there is this sense of hostility in a sense, and of being othered, which is profound, and that going forward, unless somehow that is corrected, if at all it can be, there will be no new normal.
That, Vishnu, for me is the deepest thing that we should be worried about. If you define normalcy by the fact that do the security forces control Kashmir, I think they do. You can hardly look out in the Kashmir Valley without coming across some security person. They are very much in control. If you go by the fact that students went for examination, yes, they did. I actually met them. And I asked them, how did you prepare? कहते sir, पिछले 3 महीने से स्कूल नहीं लग रहा था. एग्जाम कैसे दिया? सर वो डेट शीट आ गई, वो तो देना पड़ा ना. I mean, if you call this normalcy, yes, that normalcy does prevail. Yes, business and trade is coming somewhat back to normal. Yes, there is some restoration of those life things, but that is not the way you judge these things. Political rights, we are still in the para zone. You have freedoms, you don't have freedoms outside us. But to my mind, the deepest point is this. The whole exercise was aimed at creating better integration of Kashmir with the rest of the country. And that integration has to happen in mind and heart.
Yes.
Has anything of that kind happened?
Yeah.
My observation, and this is limited to Kashmir, I have no idea of Jammu or Ladakh, in the valley, an already bad, complicated situation has been made much, much worse. What we have achieved in the last 100 days is that we have virtually eliminated the middle ground that existed in Kashmir.
Right.
Anyone who could stand for India, anyone who could stand for tricolor, anyone who could talk about the idea of India has been shut up now completely. The entire political opinion spectrum has been shifted to the right.
Yeah.
Yes, Farooq Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti may be released at some point, but by now they are irrelevant. People don't even look at that. In fact, they are saying good riddance, chhado, khatam hua, acha hua.
No, in fact,
Jilani sahi baat kehta
you
tha.
raise an interesting point. And I wanted to go across to Mr. Masoodi for that. Hasnain Masoodi, is that your big concern, that willy-nilly in this scenario, in the absence of leaders like Omar Abdullah and Farooq Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti, the politics which you represented has been physically removed from the scene at a time when political leaders would want to have tried to reach out to people in Kashmir for the causes that they believe in. That leadership is gone. That mainstream leadership is physically in jails right now, and therefore it leaves you nowhere. It's just this anger on the ground with no real political leadership anywhere. Is that your biggest concern?
Yes, of course. Vishnu, that of course is the concern, but let me say at the outset that, I mean, I wish facts were on side of Honorable Home Minister. See, he does not find support from the situation on the ground. 1.5 million students stay away from schools, colleges and universities and continue to be that. And Home Minister wants us to believe that only because few thousand students appeared in board exams and it was per force, and that should be an indicator of normalcy. See, all the political leadership is behind bars. You know that National Conference, right from president, vice presidents, provincial president, general secretary, and everyone, district president, and same is true about all political parties, are under detention. There is internet blockade, and you know, as rightly pointed out by Meera, it is now a part of the integral part of your right to life and liberty. I mean, that is not, blockade is in place for last more than 5 months, and still you call it normalcy. If you want people to believe it, I don't think that anyone is going to, with an objective, opinion, is going to believe you. I mean, the facts, the business has suffered billions of rupees in loss.
Okay,
as per this
sure.
Chamber of Commerce.
Mr. Masoodi, just bear with me for a moment.
Again,
I just want to
go
now across to
yes, please.
Yeah, I'm running out short on time as usual. I want to go across to General Ata Hasnain. General, we've had this massive security presence in Jammu and Kashmir.
Just one second, sir, and Vishnu. And no, Vishnu, and this is compared with emergency. This is justified. Everything is justified on making it comparable to the emergency that you suffered during emergency.
Yeah, in fact, there was that one very shocking statement that in the case of emergency, there were 33 MPs who were in jail. Here, that the numbers are much, much lower. But
And
General
then why should not
Hasnain,
be
how much longer?
former foreign minister?
Right, General Hasnain, how much longer does the argument that security has to be maintained on the ground, and that is the reason for denying political leaders, out of jail, or isn't that a problematic argument at this stage? At what stage do we step back and say that, look, at this juncture, maybe the argument on security is an excuse to prevent political leaders, mainstream political leaders in Kashmir, from having a voice?
Vishnu, let me start by saying that I agree with Maya completely. When you say the term normalcy is a very comparative term, and therefore, actually it's a very unfair thing to be debating, because all of us have different perceptions of normalcy. One of the things which I can tell you in terms of security is that absence of violence is not considered security. And therefore, from that definition, I understand that there is so much more to things which are happening in Kashmir. You specifically asked me in this aspect of the continuing security situation. Yes, one of the major things the government has achieved is that Pakistan has not been able to intervene in Kashmir effectively. We have been able to have stabilization of the streets of Kashmir, no violence, not a person killed, terrorist activities have been under control. Now, in all my writings and my analyses, I am surmising that this is the time which is appropriate to start diluting your security and taking risks. Because I think at this time, the Home Minister perhaps is not in a position to really give an affirmative answer also. Perhaps he's just given it. But this is the time you need to take political risk, you need to take a security risk, you need to take a social risk. You need not reduce your security forces.
No, but I think
that's
an important
something
point.
on the mobile internet, some aspects of political release has to take place at this time.
Would you agree with that it's been more than 100 days
you are going to lose
at this
the
juncture?
international support that you've had so far.
That whatever support we've had internationally, it's been declining. There is no doubt about that, for right or for wrong. There's been this visit by these European MPs. There's been a lot of criticism of that because our own MPs have been unable to go. But at what stage does the centre say, look, enough is enough, we need to let out these leaders towards genuine political normalcy, or an attempt at that? Is this not the time?
International situation is well within control, and Government of India has managed it very well. Let us be very clear about it, and we have seen the fruits of that in various forums. Now, so far as the other risk analysis, as Lieutenant General Saab was saying, is done on certain intelligence inputs. It is not in air that this is the right time. Government has various inputs with it. The effort from the terrorists, all the killings have been taken place by the terrorists, none from the security forces. We have to keep that very important fact in mind. And normalcy is a relative term, I agree. What was on 5th of August, as I have said number of times, and what is today, there is a marked change and improvement. Give some time to the Government of India. Within their own intelligent inputs that they have, the various other things that they have a roadmap. They are not going to disclose that roadmap to you, but that roadmap is flexible enough. Maybe they decide they had a date, but they had certain inputs, they extended the date. So we have to give some kind of, discretion and flexibility to the government in due course of time.
My last word, yes.
Last word. I just want to say, one is that our definition of normalcy has been shifting since the 5th of August with every new step that is taken towards restoring landlines or opening up, so there's been different goalposts for norms. That's one. The second, and I think this is really the critical point, there is no conversation taking place between Delhi and Srinagar right now, Delhi and Jammu right now, when there is a gap in conversation between Delhi and Kashmir. The only people who gain are the separatists. And I think the point that everyone, Yogendra Yadav has made this, I've written about it, Ata Hasnain is saying it, everyone is coming around to the same conclusion that the elimination of the political mainstream is going to have extremely serious and worrying consequences. And I think the centre really must now start looking at some way to bridge that gulf, because there's only one party that gains from that gulf.
That's Pakistan, right?
Separatists, Pakistan,
Well, one way or the other, it's now been a very long period of time.
Just give me a
what is the roadmap that the government actually has in place? We're running out of time on this program, but as usual, this is a theme which keeps coming back, which we will revisit. Out of time, thanks very much for being with us.